This is Desert Homestead Prepping. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. So I'm just taking a trip out to the root cellar. Figured I'd talk about a subject that goes right in line with why we're building the homestead the way that we are. And that is the topic of CMEs. CME is a solar storm. We get them all the time, but you know, if we ever got a large solar storm, there would be no coming back from it. All right, so when it comes to solar storms, you have to really understand how devastating they can be. And a good example of how devastating a solar storm can be found by looking at what happened in 1859. In 1859, and it's called the Carrington event. So the Carrington event was a massive solar storm that was directed right at Earth. You got to remember, back in 1859, we really didn't have a dependence on electricity like we do now. We were just barely getting started with, with modern electricity and communication. That was right when we had installed all the telegraph wires across the United States. We were starting to have instant communication through the telegraph system. And of course, we had some minor power systems that supplied power to the telegraph wires. And so when the Carrington event happened, it hit the Earth so hard that people could see the northern lights all around the world. It was quite amazing to see, and many people even panicked and thought that maybe it was the end of the world because of seeing the northern lights and like the Bahamas and stuff like that. And not just a little bit. I mean, nobody had cameras that could enhance colors and stuff like that. Like, it was bright as could be to the naked eye. And so when it hit, it just devastated the telegraph wires and the telegraph system. There were reports that there was a surge in power, and so the operators shut the power off to the telegraph wires, but they were still electrified, and they were amazed that they were able to communicate and still send signals back and forth with no power going to the telegraph system. Other places, parts of the telegraph wires actually caught fire. So yeah, you just look that up, Carrington event of 1859, and that's a good demonstration of what a massive solar storm can do. So yeah, when you think about that, that was way back then. I mean, was it an inconvenience? Well, yeah, but it wasn't devastating. Not like it would be now. And they're saying that we're due for another massive solar flare. And in fact, right now, we are entering into what's called solar maximum, where the sun goes through cycles, and we are at the peak of a sunspot cycle, where we start to get massive solar storms. And in fact, we have seen some amazing auroras over the last year. I mean, all the way down into New Mexico and all that, and multiple times. And so, it's obvious for anybody who's paying attention that something a little different has been going on, because I've never seen the northern lights, and I've lived in kind of a northern region. So for it to happen, what has it been, 5 or 6 times in the last year? is quite amazing. So you got to think, what happens when we get hit by something like the Carrington event? Um, it's not going to be like an EMP. An EMP is, localized. It's when, a, a nu- when a nuclear weapon is detonated in the atmosphere, and it causes an electromagnetic pulse that would disrupt communications, power grids, and radio communication. And so, sure, the grid would go down. You'd have no power, but your handheld devices would work. There may not be a signal. You'd be able to, you know, use your common devices with a generator and all that stuff. So it would cause devastation, but nothing like a CME. A solar storm of that magnitude would devastate the power grid. I mean, absolutely destroy it. I mean, it basically the whole thing would go up in flames. And so then you think about the other effects. So not only would the power grid be destroyed, but your sensitive electronic devices, which is everything, would be destroyed. So think about solar panels. Think about wiring for backup generators. Think about your telephones, TVs, computers. Think about the sensitive electronics that are in all the vehicles now. All of that would be absolutely destroyed. There's no way that we would come back from it, because in that situation, it would cause absolute chaos throughout civilization. So that's one of the big reasons why we have been trying to build our homestead the way that we have. If something like that happens, we want to be ready. And there's no way you're going to be able to get things in order after the fact. So that's why we have this root cellar and have it packed full of food, is because if we ever run into a situation where backup generators don't work, solar panels don't work, no electricity, no hope of electricity coming back, you're going to need something like this. I mean, this is the way that you're going to be able to store your food. And as you bring in more food from hunting, from livestock, from gardening and foraging, you're going to need a way to store that for the winter. And that's what a root cellar provides, is that food storage. And you're not going to want a small one. You're going to want a large root cellar. This thing's pretty big. So that's only one aspect of why we're building the way we are. The other part of why we're building is where we're building. We have chosen an area that is fairly desolate. People back in the cities look in our direction and they think of barren wasteland. Nobody can survive out there. So we know that's not true. There's plenty of resources out here. So that's one deterrent from probably the number one threat that you will deal with, and that is other people who are in a panic, who are desperate, who have children, family that they desperately want to take care of, and they will have nothing put away or any kind of resources to provide for themselves and their families. And they're going to come looking for people like you and me to take everything we have. Not because they're bad people, but because they're desperate. And in a grid down situation like that, I mean, not just down, but gone. It's going to be really bad. And we all know guns do not take any kind of electronics or electricity to work. And there's lots of them all around us. So people are going to take the only resource they have, and that is lots of weapons and ammo, and use that to take what they need for their families. So we have a few added barriers of protection And the number one barrier is distance. It would take people 2 days to walk out here, maybe 3, and it would be very difficult for them to get here. And then the other protection is a desire to even come here. They'll look in our direction and think, why do I want to go out there? Those people ain't got nothing. And there's nothing out there that's going to be able to sustain me. They're going to go over to the forests and the rivers and the lakes and reservoirs, and they're going to go that way. And then, of course, got to make sure you have yourself some guns and ammo. Guns and ammo, very important, not just for hunting and surviving, but for protection. God forbid we ever get to that point. Then the next one is community. We have a great community of wonderful people here. Very helpful, very kind, very like-minded. And that's going to be essential for us to be able to come together for the good of each other's families in order to sustain what we have is going to be vital. You can't just do this alone. You got to have some friends. You got to have some neighbors who are capable, who are able and willing to work with you in a situation like that. So yeah, just think about those kind of things. That's one of the big factors for why we never went with solar. I do have some solar panels and some batteries, and we can hook them up and we can use that if we need to. But really, why build our homestead on an infrastructure that could just be wiped out that fast? Why not build it with an infrastructure that can use the resources that we have? And that is the dirt stacked around this root cellar and the firewood that's around us to be able to cook, to purify water, and to keep us warm. And then the rainfall, catching the rainfall naturally, getting the tanks in the ground that we need to keep it so that we can store it for the winter. If you do all that stuff, that's basically what the old timers did. Live like the old timers. That's what I'm saying. Get everything set up and ready so that you can live like the old timers. Because I'll tell you what, those old timers of 1859 could care less about a solar storm. Was it cool? Yeah, I bet it was cool. Was it devastating? Not at all. Didn't even faze them. So that is what we strive to be. We strive to be a homestead that's going to be like the old timers. Unfortunately, we got a ways to go. And, if God is willing that we have some more time, then we'll be able to have this all set up and ready so that we can be like the old timers and be able to live through whatever this world has to throw at us. All right, guys, make sure you come back next time. Maybe we'll talk about some more of these topics. Obviously, we'll share what we're doing around the homestead. Plenty more projects going on. Make sure you guys are getting ready, getting prepared, get what you need just in case.